Artificial intelligence.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Alex from the AI Executive Podcast, the AI guy with the bow tie. And I'm going to have today with me a very exceptional friend of mine and guest, amazing AI founder. And his name is Arnab. I always have problems with your surname.
I still do too. My last name is Raychaudhuri, so it's Arnab Raychaudhuri. Awesome. Thanks for having me here.
Good to have you, man. Tell us a bit about yourself, like how you started in the AI arena, where are you coming from, what was your inspiration, and tell us a bit about you.
Sure. So my background's kind of a little bit nutty. I started my career as a mechanical engineer, and I used to build ventilation systems for skyscrapers in the city. Worked in politics. I got appointed by President Obama to work at the Pentagon, and that was a really cool job. But what I really missed is getting my hands dirty and building something that has some use, has something that people can touch, can use, and improves lives. So I kind of got into AI by accident. And you know, my company, my first company was augmented reality device with voice in it. The AR part of it didn't have any kind of AI built into it, but the voice did. And solving a real problem of where I was driving around and I was using my BlackBerry at the time, and there was no good way for me to talk or communicate or use maps while I was driving. So I wanted to solve that basic problem. And so that's how AI got into my life.
All right, that sounds awesome. So your background wasn't in AI necessarily, but you had a mechanical engineering background and you wanted to enter the space solving a problem yourself. That was your inspiration, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So it was more of AI was a way to get the solution done. The hardware was what I was good at, making the hardware device, which was a small device that was in the car, and you just give voice commands. The voice commands, at the point, I didn't really realize that was AI. There could be different ways to implement voice. It could be rules based. It could be AI driven, where there's more variations in commands, and that's where AI kind of came in. And AI does a lot of great things. It has a capability of doing and potential to do world-changing things. I just kind of dipped my toes in when I was building my first device there, my first company.
That's super awesome, because there are lots of people out there that they are asking themselves, so I don't know anything about AI. Should I do something? Should I start a company? And you're like the prime example of a person that wasn't necessarily involved in AI per se, but they said like, I want to solve this problem. It's going to take some AI and I'm going for it, and I'm going to like push through it and solve it. Correct? Tell us a bit about the company, like what was the name? How did it start? Like what did you do? Just a bit.
Sure. So the name of the company is Apollo. And like many of us, if you use something like Alexa, like this morning I was talking to Alexa to get the weather from far away, and it misunderstood me and was telling me about Jamaica, telling me about the country of Jamaica. And it's the problem is that AI right now, as it is, voice is not very accurate. And that's
very A, not I. Yes,
exactly. It's not very intelligent. And that's part of the problem. And part of the design of AI right now is that there's too many variations of things you can tell it, and there's not enough data to train it. So what we did with Apollo was make a task-specific AI that was really good at small tasks or small domains, and just really did good in those domains. And so solving that initial problem I was talking about, where I'll be driving along using my phone, we could enable a person to use their phones without touching it in their car situation, their car atmosphere. Whereas opposed to something like Google or Alexa, it's not contextually aware. It doesn't know that you might want directions to a place while you're driving versus walking or taking the train, or it may not know that you can't press send on your phone to send a message versus use your voice.
All right, that sounds awesome. And what was I'm sure there was an inception moment. Do you remember that? Like, can you remember the inception moment of your AI company?
In terms of deploying it and actually building it?
No, how it started. Like, what was the beginning? Like, how did it start? Like an idea, like the Inception movie,
Right.
that somebody planted the idea into other people.
Yeah.
What was your Inception moment of this AI company?
Sure. So I guess the company I was talking about before was the augmented reality company, and the voice was a small part of it. And the hardware is actually really difficult to deploy, manufacture, scale up. There's a lot of warehousing. There's a lot of logistics involved, and it wasn't going so well with the hardware part of it. But the point where I actually saw an opportunity was when I saw my mother actually using voice technology very naturally on her phone. And I thought, look, voice is a small part of our technology right now, our hardware piece. What if we make it a larger part? What if we actually focus on the software part of it and make voice really, really good in the car, which did not exist back then? It still isn't that great. That's when I realized that here's something that I can actually improve on, and it's not hardware.
All right, awesome. And like lots of people have Inception moments, but then what was the next step? Like how can our listeners now learn from that and say, okay, I have also an Inception moment. Probably I have one every day. So what do I do next? Like that's the most important thing on your executive journey in the AI space. So what did you do next? So you had the crazy idea, you liked, you saw your mother, you had this idea connected in your brain, it makes sense. Then what did you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, so from an idea to actually having a product is a huge, long time and a lot of work, a lot of pain, and I was oblivious to I was a pretty novice developer at that point, and I had no idea how to build AI or develop it or anything like that. I just thought, I could just use some iteration of Google Voice or some existing platform out there and change it up, or use Alexa and change things up. But it's not the case. There's a lot of work that goes on. So I guess the first steps is find someone that knows about AI more than you do, or find someone in your field or in that field that can kind of guide you. I think it's really important to find some kind of mentorship to do that. That'd be the first step. The second part of it is really to, find other people that are willing to, that agree with your vision, that have the same pain points, that want to actually build this. And it's really difficult to find people that share your passion, your vision, but also someone that is coherent and understands AI and actually can develop an AI. It's really difficult to do that. That matching up is the hardest part. But once you find this person, we build some kind of simple AI like MVP, which another thing is that it's another humongous hurdle to climb. MVP in a normal company versus AI company is drastically different. So that was the second step, trying to figure out, that we can actually build this, make an MVP. And then third step was to try this out, try this in a real setting, and do some tests to see if your AI actually solves the problem that you're trying to solve. And you'll learn that it usually doesn't. You'll learn that it screws up a lot, that they're in real life situations, AI doesn't account for a lot of these situations or different ways people talk. And for our example, where it was voice in the car, street noise is a huge problem. You may or street noise or things like the radio coming on and chatting and talking like that can mess up a voice engine really badly. And so we didn't account for that, and so we didn't train our AI to be good at that, or stop listening when there's a door closing or window opening or things like that. So that was really a huge hurdle for us to figure out. And that was kind of the beginning of it. That's just starting off building the engine.
Yeah?
That's just the beginning.
Well, give us a break here, because we want to start the company in AI, and we don't want to be disappointed. Yeah. So let's take it one by one. I'm sure that you succeeded in most of them. I'm happy that you tell us about all these problems, because it's not like a paradise when you try to start the company. But on the other side, if you succeed, there's like immense value that you can get out of a small space. Like this is gold mine on steroids. If internet was like a gold mine in 2000, now this is like the next bigger gold mine. Like this is like probably it's going to be a billion times like bigger than that. And we haven't yet even started on this space. Like, it's building intelligence is like for me the most valuable thing you can have. So let's take it one by one. You said like the one of the most important things you can start with is mentors. How do you tackle this issue?
Yeah, that's difficult. So initially, I'd go on LinkedIn, try to find folks in the space. Also Google some of the founding fathers of voice AI. And it's really difficult. Obviously, they're very busy and they're getting a lot of inbound people emailing them. So
I've done it also.
we've both
I've done the same thing, yes. It didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
And the forefathers of the,
and the thing is, I'm sure they want to help out. They just don't have the time. And they get a lot of folks emailing them. So then after that, you go to the next tier and try to figure out, who is new in the space that is trying to build something similar. Talk to them. Whether they're entrepreneurs in the space, whether they're computer scientists, data scientists, you have to really get into the community, which takes some time.
What would you suggest to do? Reach out to people and ask them for help?
So reaching out is one thing, but being behind a computer is different than being face-to-face to somebody. So go to meetups. There's meetups usually to whatever task you're going after. So if you're trying to do a voice AI, you can go to a meetup for that, especially in a major city. If you're going to like something like blockchain, there's a meetup for it. In New York City, it's humongous. Like blockchain is blowing up here. I think this is the best city in the world to do that. And so find a meetup, find people there, make friends, and they'll connect you through the network. And be kind of patient. I wasn't patient initially. I just expected people to jump on board and build this right away. But be patient and get feedback and understand that maybe what you're building is not the right thing.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I was too stubborn to reach out for mentors, and that was a mistake. I got easily disappointed also at the beginning of my trip. And when most of the people said no, or I don't have time, or referred me to somebody else, I got eventually disappointed and said I will sit down and learn and do it myself. Not necessarily the best way around, because it took too much time and too much money while your runway is running low. So in terms of mentorship, I would just as you said, keep on going out to meetups. Paid meetups tend to be better than the free ones for some reason. I don't know why. There's higher.
No, so I've been to paid meetups, and a lot of times your expectations are a lot higher for paid meetups, and I just had bad experiences where it's not what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And going to meetups in general, sometimes they have agendas, sometimes they don't, and it's very variable of what you actually gain from it. So I would just keep going to as many as you can. Mm-hmm. What my practice is when I'm trying to learn something new, I try to go to at least 3 a week, and try to go to random ass ones, which I think I'll have no relevance or have no relevance to what I'm doing, and go from there.
All right, awesome. For me, I had also a bad experience like that. Somebody connected me with a mentor, and he was a very good guy. We connected for an hour. I asked him some questions about how can I do something. Not technical, just general advice when I was starting. And then he sent me an invoice for $1,000 per hour. Oh my God, be aware for that. You don't need to pay. Find people that are actually done it. They are previous executives. They are people that are eager to help. And then if somebody provides lots of value, then maybe give them something. Otherwise, do not pay, or paid mentors are not going to be something that you can get lots of value of, especially these kind of paid mentors of $1,000 per hour. It's mostly for people that they've done it before, they have been there where you are now, and they can help you get there. This is my experience with mentors. Other founders, for example, helped me a lot. Yeah. AI founders.
But in terms of the technical stuff, what I would add is having someone that's that knows the space, another experienced founder. They usually don't have the time, or they'll want to charge $1,000 an hour. That's their experience. But for me, what I found to be a really good source of information and free consulting, I guess, would be find nerds, nerds like yourself that are just better at whatever you're trying to get into, like AI, voice, than you, far better. And they just would do stuff for free because they love it so much. It's their hobby, and they'll do anything to actually work in it. They go home and they build their own voice AI. And that's kind of how I found my first co-founder. He loved making voice stuff, and he was a linguist, and he just loved this. He would do this as a hobby, if he didn't have to pay the bills constantly. So, yeah.
All right, that's awesome. That's my other question. That's where also I had lots of trouble to start with. How do you find your co-founders? If you're planning to do a company, or in our case now we're talking about startups, but say that you are an AI executive. How do you hire people? Okay, you have the budget, but how do you hire? Because you don't have budget for certainly you will never have infinite budget. So if you make a couple of mistakes, you're done in your AI executive, whether it's a big company or a startup. You always have a limited runaway. How do you make sure that the technical people that you need to build your AI, your dream, is actually the right people? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I've gone through a lot of co-founders, engineers, friends trying to figure out how to build what I was trying to build. And I would say like 50, 60, like after meeting them, trying to build something, it's a long road and it takes a lot of time and money. And so for a startup to do the lean process, I would go after GitHub repos and find out, who's already doing this and already has some kind of head start on this. I think that's a really good source. And it depends what your skill set is. If you're technical, then you want to find someone that's savvy in business. But if you're business oriented and you want to find someone in technical, then you go to the GitHub source that I was talking about. But to bring on a co-founder, what you really have to do is validate that you actually have a business. This is not just a hobby that's going to be fun, and this is not like a LAN party. It's not gaming or whatever. It's not playing StarCraft on the side. This is a real business that's going to make a lot of money and pay your bills. So you need to validate that first. And to validate that an AI business will work, you need to validate that you have a customer that's willing to pay for this and really understand the customer, because once you build AI, it's really difficult to pivot away and adjust to what the customer wants. So validate the customer, figure out exactly what they want, and make sure that the customer is scalable. It's not just a one-off kind of thing. And then once you kind of relay this information to the co-founder and they see it themselves that this can actually become something bigger, you'll see the twinkle in their eye where they're just kind of in love with this company, and they'll run through walls to make this happen. And you'll just feel right. It's like going on a date. You'll feel right and just feels the chemistry is right there.
All right, that's awesome advice. Half of it is planning before you start. Yes.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, planning, exactly right. Planning this whole thing. Do you mean planning in terms of planning the whole project, or do you mean?
I mean, as you said, customer validation and all these things. Like these are very, very important before you start. Yes, as an AI executive.
I think it's the most important thing. So that's part of the mistakes I made when I first made my first AI startup. Is I thought this was a cool product that only I wanted, so everyone else wanted it also. Yeah, you too.
I've done it too. Yeah, like a couple of times, couple of pivots.
Yeah. It's the same story where if you build it, they'll come. It's not true at all.
And as you said, it's very difficult to change, to pivot, because it's tough technology. It's like changing the brain. Brain transplant is an operation doesn't exist.
You can't change your brain around.
You cannot change your brain. You cannot change your AI easily.
Yeah. Or like building a house or a building, you can't change location really easily. It's pretty difficult. Yeah. So planning is just really important. And yeah, that's I completely agree with you on that sense.
Okay, awesome. That's gold mine nuggets there. Thank you so much. I would ask you a bit about like your experience with building the AI. So what happened? What ended like being your major idea that you went on with it and you devoted most of your resources? What were your problems building your AI at that point, and how did you try to solve them?
Sure. So when you're building an AI, going back to our example of building a voice AI, there's a lot of different parts to AI and voice. And once you start building the AI, you'll see that you have to build something to solve the problem that you're running into with AI. So it becomes an endless loop of problems that you have to fix. And since this is something very new and innovative at the time that we were building it, there are things that we were building that there's no solution out there for. For example, so what we were building was essentially the core of it was a natural language processing. So it's comprehension of voice text coming in. And so there was good engines out there that converted voice to text, but there was nothing that would be good at enabling wake words. So that means when you say, "Hey Alexa" or "Okay Google," your phone or your device kind of starts listening for that. There's no good wake word engine out there at all. So we had to build something from scratch, which is extreme undertaking. It was a lot of work. And so plan for the unplanned. Expect that your project's going to take 3-4 times as long as you expect it to take, and that the MVP that you have will be pretty much crap. And so, but preparation, people that have experience in this field help a crap ton. And so have those people constantly giving you feedback.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, sounds like a common thing about the AI. I mean, AI planning for building AI is all about planning for the exceptions that happen in this space. Yes. Like exceptions, like for example, the voice, as you said, like what are the exceptions, as you said, if there is noise in the car or the specific noise of the car, for example, was an exception for your AI that you needed to build into, correct?
Right.
So every niche AI has its own like exceptions or things that happen not so often, and this is where the rough edges need to be built, correct?
That's right. So another example here is like another point of information and advice that I got or understood was your AI is only as good as its data set. And finding a really good data set is really, really difficult. So when we were building our natural language processing engine, we didn't really take into account exterior noise. And so our data set didn't have that, and we didn't train for it to like stop listening or start listening and all those things. And so whatever AI you build, you're going to have bad data, good data, and you have to find a data set that's pretty diverse, and that involves all these different noises, in our space noises. But for example, if it's computer vision, sunlight or rain might be a noise. And the same kind of example is along with any AI. And in the human brain, we can filter these noises because we've been evolved for hundreds of thousands of years.
Well, we've been trained in this data,
We've been trained in this data, exactly. So we have a training set that's huge, that we've done this with.
Okay, so yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, so if you want to choose a project about AI, you would choose the one that has less rough edges, less exceptions, or what would be your criteria for your next AI company or idea, for example?
Yeah. So first thing, after learning from mistakes I made when we first started Apollo is find the customer. Make sure you have a really concrete customer that will give you the initial check, or have, if it's in corporate, then it makes sure that your end user knows exactly what they want and they have realistic expectations.
What do you mean by realistic expectations?
So AI right now is a buzzword. People don't really understand what it means. People use it in conversation incorrectly, and they just use it as like a robotic human being. Like there's no difference. But AI is still in its infancy. It's still becoming something that's intelligent, and people just don't know what it really is. And so if it's marketing that's your end user in corporate, they might expect for you to build let's say a Twitter bot or something, a bot on Twitter that takes in tweets from, let's say, your Pepsi, and you have tweets that are being tweeted at you and responding to those messages in an intelligent way. It's really difficult because people either spell things incorrectly, they might add random spaces, they might add emojis to it. Like these are weird things that only humans do that another human can understand. Computers are more logic based, and they need a really good data set that includes the emojis, they include spaces, weird spelling to adjust for this kind of noise. And
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all these things. Like, it must have been a roller coaster of experience. Have you tried to actually deploy in production your AI and see what happened? Can you tell us some funny or not stories, or success or not, whatever? Like, I mean, we learn mostly from our mistakes, but tell us a bit about that. I have like amazing stories to share another time from my failures.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying before, like deploying AI is completely different when you deploy in the real world versus in a laboratory. So initially we found some customers in AI and voice AI, and it was Jaguar Land Rover. So the car company is Jaguar Land Rover. So we started working out of their space in Portland, Oregon, and they gave us initial funding to do this, to make this technology. They gave us cars to build their technology into, and so it was time to give a presentation or a demo to some of these Jaguar Land Rover folks, these executives. And So the first test drive we went with them, like it worked in practice, it worked when we were driving it ourselves. But then when we went with them, obviously in demo day, it fails, and it failed really badly. And so you learn that one is that you need more users to give you a feedback loop of what the issues are. You have tunnel vision when you build this yourself or your program manager for one of these things. And so you don't try to give it curveballs. You try to talk to it very easily, very directly, and very clearly to make sure it works really well. To prove to yourself you built something that's really valuable. But you need a feedback loop of a lot of people to use this and tell you this works, this doesn't work. And then you need to use that feedback loop to train the engine again. And what I'm talking about is building a pretty large AI engine and machine learning training that's really difficult to do. It's not easy to do. And to have these expertise is really costly and expensive and hard to find.
All right, awesome. And this needs to be put into the design from the beginning, yes?
That's right. So have this in the beginning. Otherwise, you'll end up like what I've done and screw things up and keep delaying your launch date, keep delaying demos and mess up on demos. So plan accordingly and have someone that's experienced in this and launch something to actually really help you launch this thing and has gone through the pain of launching an AI.
All right, awesome. And do you have any funny stories to share with happened or something that was a bit unexpected or like where you were surprised to learn, or can you remember of anything?
So
it must have been all cloudy, yes?
yeah, it's kind of a blur. There's a lot going on, and so one of the things mentioned before is we went through Techstars. That's how we met, and so Techstars was a great program, and what we'd do weekly is do some kind of demo or some kind of KPI talk and talk about our progress. And so in one of these discussions, we wanted to demo our technology. Of course, it wasn't ready. It was still very prototypey, but what we just recently did before we demoed it, we actually connected it up to another voice AI to give it more intelligence. So Thomas, who CTO of the company, he went up to give it a demo, and someone else wanted to try it. So why don't you go ahead and try it? Let's see how it actually works out. And people started talking to it, and it started giving random weird answers that kind of made sense, but it was also insulting at the same time. I don't remember the exact question, but it was insulting and it was hilarious at the same time. So everyone was laughing at how ridiculous it was, but it was almost like it was meant to make fun of the user, which is also
can go very wrong. Yeah, biases,
yeah.
racism, like lots of things can go wrong on AI.
A good example of this is Microsoft came out with a Twitter bot, I think a year ago or something, and they were training it from people tweeting at it. And so people were tweeting really racist things and like crappy things to it. And then we saw was that the Twitter bot came back and started being a racist, sexist, Nazi, which is hilarious.
That been a big failure, yes. Yeah.
But a big company like Microsoft can't handle it. Like imagine.
I don't know. Like if it can happen to a big company, imagine what that big company or not, it doesn't protect you from these things. So you need to plan a priori and be able to tackle them, like test it for these tendencies. Like does it have any bias inside or any racism or something that can be a PR mess?
Yeah.
We need to be able to check before we deploy publicly. One example that I have when I was developing the medical AI, it was that I thought that I created an AI that could detect heart failure from scans, from CT scans.
Wow.
But what it was actually detecting before I deployed it, or after I deployed it, I realized what it was actually, the first version was detecting, was detecting people that had a higher body mass. How can I even say that? People that were more obese.
Yeah.
So it wasn't actually detecting anything from the heart. It was actually looking on obese people. So obese people, heart failure. All right. So I built like a 50K kind of AI system, machine vision, to detect obesity. So these things can happen to everybody, and we need to be very, very, especially with neural networks that are not easy to debug. We need to test them a lot for these biases before we deploy.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there.
All right, awesome. So what do you think, where do you think that the future of AI is?
Well, I can talk to you about voice AI. So in terms of voice AI, the predominant voice AIs right now are Google and Alexa and Siri. There'll be other ones coming for different use cases. So AI is going to have different tasks that it's really good at. And it's going to talk to other AIs, and it's going to be a hive mind AI. So AI is going to talk to each other is going to be the big next milestone for us. And gathering the information from other AIs and being able to comprehend it and produce the information to humans is going to be the next forefront of AI. But there's still a long way to go in terms of like self-driving. In terms of like self-driving, people think that it's going to be right. We're just going to have cars driving around by themselves, but there's different levels of competency that we've set up, and there's all these different like real world problems that we're dealing with. So there's a long way to go with AI, but there's some simple things we can fix. And that's where we'll see the $1 billion projects or companies where AI solves simple things and that we take for granted. For example, we do a Google search. There's a lot of AI involved in when you do a Google search. It understands whatever you're searching for, and the sentence you're making is probably what other people have searched for, and it's able to simply kind of make the sentence for you and autocomplete.
Mm-hmm. So, like, you think that the future of AI is like multiple AIs talking to each other and creating more stuff that you need for you and present them to you automatically?
Yeah, because each one of these different AIs is going to have different specialties or have training sets that are specialized for different tasks. When you train these AIs, you don't have unlimited data sets. You have to use some biased information no matter what you're doing. Just like a human being, some people that live in different countries have biased information about certain things in politics or whatever it is. For example, their thoughts on Trump. Like certain regions of the world think that Trump's great, other regions think he's horrible. There's different biases, the same biases that are transferred onto AI also.
All right, awesome. So if you had to share with us, when do you think this will happen? Like all this progress in AI that you described right now on your niche?
So it's happening right now. The question is, when is it going to be useful enough to use everywhere? So AIs that work together will be like a self-driving car where you can talk to it, and it has mapping that's intelligent also. So that's like 3 different AIs working together. And so we're seeing some of that now. It's very basic. But what these billion-dollar companies are doing, either large organizations or startups are doing, is making sure the error that they're having are not critical. You're not going to die if they make a mistake. So it's going to be very low barrier, low risk kind of AIs that we see everywhere. So it can be from something like searching for a home in the city, like Zillow has some kind of AI built in for searching for the right type of the house and things like that, to self-driving, to heart surgery eventually, where robots will be doing surgery on us and we'll have to on the fly understand when to avoid an artery or switch it up or stop an operation. So it's going to get more and more critical and more important in our lives.
How many years?
So the non-risky stuff is happening right now, and the more risky stuff is going to start happening in the next, I think, 5 years, 10 years. 5 years is when we'll start seeing some of this, and we'll start seeing accidents. But like in testing already, we see like Uber self-driving is crashing into people. And so we'll see, I guess a good sign, good sign is that the more accidents and bad things we see, the more progress we're making, which is a weird way to kind of test it. But yeah.
So if you guys think that it's too late to start a company, we haven't even seen anything. We haven't even started, correct? Like up for grabs, like trillions of dollars out there. So what if you had one nugget of wisdom, what would be from your AI executive experience?
So going back to finding the use case and being realistic about it, making sure that you have customers that are willing to go through the pain of AI with you, and also definitely find this use case. Make sure you have sales ahead of time, and then make sure that your data set is also good. So I guess 3 different things. Make sure that you have customers from number 1. Number 2 is really having good realistic expectations, and 3 is really having a good data set.
All right, awesome. And if anybody wants to reach out and connect with you, where can they do that?
So you can find me on just Google my name. It's really, really long, and I'm one of the only ones in the world probably that have this long name. And so it's Arnab Raychaudhuri. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. My Twitter handle is @ArnabING. I rarely use that. But yeah, that's the way to find me.
Yeah. Oh, an easy way to find him is Arnab Apollo. Google that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Arnab at okapollo, OKAPOLLO.com.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Arnab, and good luck on your future plans. And thank you so much for sharing all of this advice with all these amazing people that are out there and ready to start.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Good luck on this.
Artificial intelligence.